Hello guys, today we will look at the game Chigorin versus Paulsen, and the next game Steinitz versus Chigorin. First game. Chigorin play white, Paulsen black. e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, cd4, knight takes d4, queen b6, knight b3, knight f6, knight c3, e6, h3, bishop e7, bishop e2, castling, a6, queen d3, queen c7, f4, d6, queen g3, bishop d7, bishop e3. A familiar position. The Scheveningen variation of the Sicilian defense frequently met today. Rook a to d8. An unhappy maneuver. Modern theory recommend b5 or rook a to c8 to allow freedom of operation on the queen side. Knight d2. The intention is either to transfer the knight to c4, aiming to advance it if given the chance to b6, or to move it to f3, from where it will be able to support the attack on black's king. d5, e5, knight e8, knight f3, f5, queen f2, queen b8, bishop b6, rook c8, bishop d3. Black's poor planning leads him into a cramped and hopeless situation. Chigorin steadily piles on the pressure. Knight c7, knight c2 e2, knight c2 a8, bishop e3, knight f5, b3, b5. Gradually, black now returns to the correct plan of campaign on the queen side, but valuable time has been lost and there are no squares on the c-file for him to invade. h4, knight b7, b4. Now the knight on b7 cannot achieve anything useful, and black does not manage to take advantage of the weakened e4 square. Queen c7, knight e to d4, knight d8, g4, fg4, knight g5, bishop g5, if g6, Then queen g3 with dangerous threats. Hg5, g6, king g2, rook b8, rook h1, rook f7, rook h6, rook g7, rook a to h1, knight f7, just a moment. Rook h4, rook f8, queen g3, knight d8, queen g4, knight b6, Paulson, who was considered the best defense expert, has firmly strengthened his position. Only his last move is a mistake and is effectively rubified. It was held that black could still retain equality after bishop c8. Bangred Master Vasenkov and Master Kinin proved that in this case the move queen h3 also gives white a chance for victory. Here's one of the possible variations. Rook f to f7, rook h6, king f8, threatened by bishop g6. King f8, knight f3, d4, bishop d4, rook f4, bishop c5, king e8, rook h7. Rook h7, rook h7, bishop, rook f7. If king takes, then check, lead to mate. Rook h6, knight c4, rook g6, check, king f8, bishop f2, bishop c8, queen h4, king e7, rook g8, king d7, g6, rook e7, queen takes e7. Black resigns. This was the first game. The second game, Steinitz versus Chigorin. Stay needs play white, Chigorin black. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight g5, d5, ed5, knight a5, bishop b5, c6, dc6, bc6, bishop e2, h6, knight h3. It is theoretically proven that if the knight retreats to f3, black is sufficiently compensated. The controversial move of knight to h3, which Steinitz defended, is still disputed. Robert Fischer revived it and made use of it in several games. Steinitz considered knight to h3 the best move, but Chigorin did not agree. Bishop c5. The knight on h3 is so poorly placed that there is no sense in exchanging it, even if this weakens the position of white's pawns. As Fischer pointed out here, bishop d6 also deserves attention in order to reply to d4 with e4. d3, castling, knight c3, knight d5, knight a4, bishop d6, knight g1, f5. We should point out, by the way, that Fischer interprets the position after the knight's move to h3 otherwise in a more modern fashion, without placing great hopes on his wall of pawns. This is how his game with Arthur B. Black proceeded in the New York Championship after bishop c5. Castling, d3, bishop takes h3, h, queen d7, bishop f3, in this case of bishop g4, knight g4, followed by f5, black is in a good position to attack. Queen takes h3, knight b2 d2, rook d8, bishop g2, queen f5. As Fischer pointed out, by playing queen f3, white gains some advantage. So, certain move was f5, f5, c3, bishop d7, d4, e4, c4, knight e7. Black does not want to close the file and is preparing to transfer the knight either to f4 or f5. In the case the pawn on f5 moves to f4. Knight c3, bishop e6, b3. Steinitz persistently defends his theory of the pawn chain, whereas the situation demands decisive action. He should have played f4 in an attempt to mobilize his forces. Bishop b4, bishop b2, f4. Black attacks on all fronts, intending to open play by sacrificing the pawn on f4. In opening the files, Black's advantage in development should prove decisive. Queen c2. A disaster is imminent, but there are no longer any satisfactory continuation. In the case of king f1, there is a powerful reply: f3, gf3, ef3, bishop f3, knight g6, and then knight h4 in the case of h3. And in case of h3, a good response is b takes c3, this variation. If h3, b takes c3, bishop takes c3, knight f5, bishop g4, rook b8, and black is doing fine. Queen c2, queen d4, king f1, f3, gf3, ef3, bishop f3, bishop f5, knight e4, bishop e4, queen e2, bishop f3, queen e6, king h7, bishop d4, bishop h1, rook h3, queen h3, knight f5, bishop e5, rook a to e8, bishop f4. White is beautifully mated after f4. Rook e5, e5, knight g3 mate. Knight d4, queen d3 check, bishop e4, queen d4, rook f4, f3, rook e to f8, queen a7, c5, queen c7, knight c6, a3, rook f3, knight f3, rook f3 check, king d1, king g1, bishop d2. Chigorin attack was perfect, and this is one of the most noteworthy games of the 19th century. Chigorin's victory over Saint made a great impact. Yes, as we can see, if for example rook goes here, queen check, rook g2, queen f7. That's it. So yeah, I wish you all the best and have a good day. Bye.